Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Addy, aka Anakin Skywalker, YouTube's chosen one. I'm here with a very special guest, Mr. Jon Wedger.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you, and really thankful for Pepsi Watson for being here and hosting this podcast.
Yeah, it's my second time with Crime and Justice TV.
Yeah, definitely. So this is Crime and Justice TV with Ads and Mr. Jon Wedger. And Mr. Wedger is an ex-police detective and police officer for over 25 years with Scotland Yard. Yep. And if you want to delve further into an intro and just tell us about yourself, Mr. Wedger.
I'm a retired police detective. I serve most of my time in the police force as a detective, and in the British police force you start off on the street as a uniformed police officer. I think it's very similar to America. Mm-hmm. I actually did some work with the NYPD, and the similarities between them and us was just striking. It was unbelievable. Whereas in Europe it is a bit different, but we have the same sort of justice system. And then I moved into the detective branch, as they call it, and are very multifaceted and grounded in various types of investigation. But what I really was my bread and butter and what I specialised in was child abuse and vice investigations. I'm really sort of known for my stance as a police whistleblower. I blew the whistle on the deliberate cover-up of child prostitution within central London, and it did explode outwards. And in the UK, we are seeing these exposés all around now of child, what they call grooming gangs, but it's just really child prostitution gangs, and how prevalent they are, as well as how much the British government has covered stuff up generationally, you know. And in me speaking out, I come under monumental attack, and there was some very spiteful attempts to silence me, which really what they wanted was two things: either that I end up in prison or I end up committing suicide.
Okay. Let's go back just a second for American viewers or people not from England who don't know exactly what Scotland Yard is.
Of course,
Could you just briefly explain that?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back, and what I like about this interview is we have a nice relaxed approach. Crime and Justice are always good to me. They always let me have a little...
Shout out to... we got Dr. Watson and Sherlock Holmes here for all of
I like
it's
that.
my childhood dream. We got this random American here with these two.
What I would say, Dr. Watson, I wouldn't go to him with a medical problem.
Definitely not.
Although he did offer to give me a medical, but there we go. Now, Scotland Yard, let's go back. The UK is really the inception of global policing, and it's what is classed as a benchmark of excellence. And it's sad to see how it has demised over the last couple of decades, and that's a deliberate attempt, I believe, by the governments to sort of erode our policing. And I think they knew these exposures were coming out. Policing began in 1798. It started with what they call the Marine Police, and it was basically set up by the City of London, and it was set up to protect the boats that were coming into London because they were getting robbed. They employed Royal Marines to start with, and then from there it evolved to the Metropolitan Police and the Bow Street Runners. And before that, you didn't have a police force, you know. So
Scotland Yard is basically England's police force. Is that?
Everything's centred around London. Scotland Yard really is known for its detectives. Now, Scotland Yard, the name comes from the location. It was based in an area called Scotland Yard. And then from there, a new building was set up, which was called New Scotland Yard.
Okay.
And what it was a headquarters for London, but it became the headquarters for what they call squads, which were the detective units.
Okay.
So really, when you've got the real serious crime units, they were all sort of based in Scotland Yard. Okay. And it's quite an accolade to have served in Scotland Yard. It is the Metropolitan Police, however, Scotland Yard is more synonymous with the detective branch of policing because that's where they were all housed.
Okay. And that's consistent with what I've seen on Sherlock and Holmes. But
who was never a policeman, I must add.
No, yeah, he was an independent detective. Yeah. But so the Scotland Yard based in London, and we are broadcasting from Pepsi Watson's studio, Crime and Justice TV in London. So that's where we're basing it out of. And you started as pretty much a what we call in the States a beat cop.
Yeah, a bobby.
A bobby. Okay, that's what you guys call them, right?
A bobby, and that come from one of the commissioners called Robert Peel.
Okay.
And Bobby. But yeah, I was a beat cop. I was a uniform copper. I started off not too far away from here. We're in South London. I was in South East London, a very, very rough part of London. I then transferred to what they call a West End, which is the centre of London, which is Piccadilly Circus and Buckingham Palace and that area.
Yeah, so if you're a tourist, you know those areas, of course.
Very, very much a touristy area. And then from there, I went into, I was really pushed into the, I had a choice. What it was it was difficult to get a driving course. Everyone wanted a driving course so they could, the response courses, you see the police cars driving fast around.
Yep.
When I joined the police, you had to do 5 years before you even got considered for a course.
Okay.
I was offered it quite young in my service, and my inspector saw my capabilities, my tenacity to investigate crime, and said, look, if you take a driving course, you're going to be tied to uniform policing, you're better off in the CID. And
Criminal Investigation Division.
Criminal Investigation, that's what it stands for, Criminal Investigation Department. And I liked how they worked. I'm not a team player, Addy. I'm very much a loner. I don't do discipline. I struggled with the police training, in as much as it was very, very military orientated. It was very disciplined. Mm-hmm. And the police service when I joined was actually a police force, and it was a disciplined service. And I like detectives because they worked on their own, and I like their style. And funny enough, one of my heroes was an American detective called Frank Serpico.
Okay.
There was a film called Serpico, and it was played by Al Pacino.
Okay. Yeah.
And Serpico really is the original whistleblower. And a couple of years ago, getting off 3 years ago now, I actually shared a stage with Frank Serpico. He got in touch with me, heard about my plight, and offered to share a stage with me in Amsterdam, in Holland.
Oh, wow.
I went out and met and spoke with Frank Serpico.
And he's retired now, I'm sure.
Oh, long since retired. They say you should never meet your heroes, and it was a bit true. He wasn't the man I thought he was. However, the film, that your American viewers will know it.
Okay.
You know,
yeah.
and really because it was Al Pacino that was.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So that's happened, but how I ended up here in this situation was that I.
So you started doing detective work.
Which I really loved.
Mm-hmm. And then you got into investigating crimes against, more generally sexual abuse crimes.
Paedophiles.
Okay.
Firstly, I was asked to investigate transient paedophiles that had sort of gone under the radar. Now, you have it in America that paedophiles are exposed, they're publicly exposed. Paedophiles started getting registered in the UK in 1997, and they had to sign a register. So the police knew who they were and they could risk assess these people. But these paedophiles started going missing and they didn't know where they went. And I was asked to look into them. And I found that they started, because the UK, because of geography has so much to do with everything really. The UK, especially London, it's a port, it's a river. And from there, the trade routes built up, and they built a canal network throughout the UK, which linked all the major rivers together. So before the road network, the canal network was there. Now it's used really as a recreational thing. It's no longer used for cargo. But we're going back to the 1700s. But people living on canal boats, these boats. And what was happening was that these paedophiles were actually going and living on these boats because they could avoid detection.
To hide out, yeah.
Yeah, they hide out exactly. I mean, there's a bigger lecture that I do on this. I actually do a lecture on this, the dynamics of how it works and the geography behind it and everything else. But that would just consume all our time, you know, and that would be a waste of time.
A whole other.
Yeah, exactly. It's another talk, that one. And so I was told, look. We believe there's 2 paedophiles living on canal boats here in London. If you can find a couple more, we'd be eternally grateful. So I was just given free rein. I was very good at street work. I was very good at recruiting informants. You know?
Street informants.
Street informants. It was my thing. It was just what I was very good at, and it nearly actually cost me my life, which I can get onto a bit later.
Yeah. Wait, is that from street criminals at this point, or is it?
It was. I'll show how it links in, but it was the Turkish mafia actually put a contract out to kill me, and it's all linked in with that.
They had an assassination contract.
Yeah, £40,000 put out to kill me.
And when was this?
2004.
Oh wow! So I was like 15 years ago already.
Yeah. And it was real, and it was credible,
And that obviously did not succeed. Why didn't that?
Well, that didn't succeed because because of what I was doing,
why was the contract put out?
Because I was very, very good at getting information, and I started seizing a hell of a lot of heroin. This is sort of going a bit away from it, but it has got like a connection to sort of what goes on. And how policing actually works, detective work works, because informants really are the hub of information gathering, because they're an extremely cheap and versatile way of getting information. Surveillance is long-winded and it's technical, and there's a lot of legal connotations, whereas informants, you don't need any of that.
Yeah.
They're there, they know what's going on, and they'll tell you. And people give information for a plethora of reasons, and legal reasons as well. Back then you could take out the competition. Some of them did it because they actually saw God. It was a justifiable reason. Some of them because it was the right thing to do, and others did it because they wanted a lesser reduction in their sentence, which was usually the more common one. What happened was I brought up children on my own, and I was doing a lot of stuff with children, and the guy who was given the contract, he respected me for that. He did, because he was he was a victim of child trafficking.
Oh wow.
And he was brought over for crime, and he said, no, Jon Wedger's a good man. He actually gave himself up and went to the police about what happened, and he himself came in mortal danger on 3 major occasions for doing so.
For not killing you.
And helping out and coming forward. So, and then the threat on me was intense. It was so intense that there were certain parts of London I wasn't allowed to work in for quite a while. And funny enough, the guy who put the money up was found about 5 years ago decapitated in a forest just outside London, with his arms tied behind his back and his head cut off. So it shows how meaningful these guys are, that they mean business. They were and I've been threatened quite a few times in my policing career, but when I got a threat from them, I was worried. I was worried, but and I will a bit later on show how the threat continues because of what I've done.
Okay, and what did you do further because you kept going, right?
Yeah, well, what happened was, when I said, they asked me to find 2 people, I actually found 90 in a 3-month period. And this is when I realised that there is a will within a will, and there is a conspiracy of silence. So a lot of people that speak out about what's going on, especially we're seeing it with Epstein and everything else, they get cast as conspiracy theorists. Now, conspiracy is statute law. You can conspire to commit murder, you can conspire to commit armed robbery. Conspiracy is 2 or more people getting together for a common purpose, for crime, for major crime. So it goes on. And there was a man that I was doing a lot of work for at the time. He was my first inner really to Scotland Yard. He was on the dedicated paedophile unit, and he actually said to me, look, be very careful about being successful in this line of policing. And the reason being, he said, you can be successful in anything else, they will love you and you'll do well and you'll get promoted for it. You get successful in this line of work, looking into paedophilia, you're in trouble.
Why is that? Because from the surface, people, that doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't.
Why would you get punished for?
Do you know why? Because it involved politicians. He then told me about a Home Secretary that had come to notice on more than 2 occasions for his involvement with young male prostitutes, and he said on both occasions we were all silenced.
And when you say young, how young?
He never gave an age, but I will tell you the ages of the children I was dealing with was from 9 to 14. And I do know subsequently, because I deal with victims and survivors of abuse now, that they go a lot younger and it goes into the infant stage, you know. And it's appalling and it's massive. But what happened then was that I was brought in before a senior officer and I was told, shut your mouth, back away from this. We were removing you, we're shutting down the investigation. And I was really confused, I didn't know why. Initially I was told that it was because they couldn't, I was seconded, I was told that they couldn't afford my labour on this investigation.
Really?
But I was later informed that it's come from up top and we can't question it. So I did as I was told and I backed away. But then I moved to a Scotland Yard unit, an elite unit called the Vice Unit.
Okay. Yeah.
And the Vice Unit had governance for quite a few little aspects of crime, and it was prostitution, gambling and drinking.
Okay.
All the vices really. But it was organised crime involving all three elements of it. And the British police is very, very clever in this, and because it's age old, the British police. So this is not something that has just cropped up. It's evolved this way. They compartmentalise their investigations. So things like prostitution will initially might come to notice of the uniform beat copper, bobby, whatever, but it will soon be taken and given to a specialist unit. Now there's reasons for it. There's their official reasons for it, and there is a deeper reason for it. The official reason is that they're experienced coppers and this is experienced crime, which requires a lot of training and everything else. I get that. However, I was late to find out that there is another reason, and it really is to silence if it goes too deep, and that is what we're seeing coming out, hemorrhaging at the moment in global media, to be honest. So I moved on to the Vice Unit and I worked with prostitutes, I worked with street prostitutes, and the one thing that sort of struck me, Addy, with the people I was dealing with, that most of them were drug addicts. In fact, all of them were drug addicts, but they'd all come from what was classed as the care system. Okay. And these are children's homes, and they'd all been sexually abused as children, these prostitutes, and they'd ended up on heroin as a result of their lifestyle, and then they end up on the street to fund the drugs. But they were the eyes and ears of the street. And what I would do is I would recruit prostitutes, and I would recruit what we call tramps, vagrants, homeless, because they see everything. And I found out that the majority of the people that were on the street were drug addicts, and the majority of them had actually been abused themselves. And what had happened then is that a young girl had made an allegation that she had been used as a prostitute. She was in her sort of mid-teens, but she'd been worked as a prostitute for quite a while. And what had happened was that she came forward and had been disbelieved on 2 occasions, and it was given to me like she took her seriously. So this little girl started speaking to me, and she was very credible. And she said, "It's not just me, there's others." And she gave me the name of her friend. I spoke to her friend gave me the name of another girl, and on it went. It was a bit like pyramid selling. And before we knew it, we had dozens and dozens of children, all saying the same thing, all were being operated by a central figure, which was a woman. Again, this dispels a lot of myths that paedophiles are all men.
Yeah. And this is colloquially called a madam, right? Or a female pimp.
Yeah, madam, yeah. It was a street prostitute that, and I was late to find out that she was incredibly well known to the police for being a prostitute anyway, and involved in all sorts of criminality, drug dealing and everything. But also, there have been rumours that she'd been involved in coercing young girls into prostitution for quite a long time. So the unit had known about this girl. And what she was doing a process which we now know as grooming. So she was approaching these dysfunctional girls which have got a lot of things lacking in their lives, a lot of love, a lot of everything else. She was filling that void. And she was combing their hair, she was taking them out, but she was slowly getting them involved in, firstly in watching pornography, then getting them involved in being present while she was entertaining sexually a client, and then getting the child involved with it. But in order to do so, what went alongside was that first of all it was cannabis. She'd give them cannabis, and then it quickly progressed to crack cocaine, and some of them heroin. And then with that, you then get the medical need to keep going. So not only is the madam, the manager of these girls and getting them the work and giving them the love, giving them the attention, she's also their medicine woman.
Drug dealer.
Drug dealer, yeah. She had a big Jamaican enforcer working with her, but she was incredibly well connected. And it turned out that the client list for these girls was just as varied. It ranged from these girls, one minute could be taken to a very, very upmarket West End, as we call it, Mayfair, the very affluent, probably the most affluent part of really Europe, restaurants, big posh Arab restaurants, everything else. 1 minute be traded there for a few £1,000s, and then the next day she could be taken to a crack house, a crack den, and traded for cracks of cocaine. So
they're being sold.
Being sold, yeah. This is human trafficking. And what I found out, it had never really been looked at. It had been known about, but it never been looked at, and never really been properly put together and profiled. And this is exactly what, not just myself, I'm not taking the glory for this, but the very, very small, very underfunded team that I was on. I then compiled a report on what was going on, the whole dynamics of it, and this is when I met the main resistance. I was basically threatened with the loss of my children, with the loss of my home and loss of my job if I continued to pursue with the investigation.
And this resistance came from within your own workforce, right?
It came from the senior detective that was running the unit.
And did he do this at your workplace?
Yeah.
Wow.
He met me and he threatened me, and he basically, his words were, what you've exposed will fuck us, past, present and future. This cannot and will not ever get out. If this gets out, you will be thrown to the walls. You will lose, like I said. He said, this must never ever get out. He said, if it gets out, I can't protect you. You're in a world of trouble, basically. And that I had no idea how deep this went. It was then I realised that this man had the capabilities to carry out his threat. I was frightened.
So he was the one that could have put the hit on you, this guy that threatened you?
No, well, he might have done, I don't know. I don't think he did, but I mean, it just shows how connected it was. Now, bear in mind, I'd been warned of this a few years prior because there had been politicians involved, and we're seeing it come out now, and everything I said has been totally corroborated 1,000 million times over now, not just on a national but on a global basis.
Yeah.
And this is how it's allowed to continue unabated because no one looks into it, and when they do, they are threatened.
To someone playing like the devil's advocate, not me per se, but what would you say to someone's like who would ask like, well, where's the proof of this, or why do you know what I'm saying?
Well, when you look at proof, when you look at any sort of sex crime, you only have two narratives. You have no evidence on the whole, not unless it's within 48 hours and you actually find semen inside a girl or there is physical injuries. But when it's gone on a historic basis, and when it comes to historic, you're looking at anything over 72 hours really, because it's to do with DNA dying out.
Right.
So you're going to get two people saying something. Firstly, you're going to get the person saying that they have been sexually abused, raped and everything else. And the other one, you're going to get someone saying, no, it's nothing to do with me, I never did it. And that's all you ever get.
He said, she said.
He said, she said, and that's that. You see, and the other thing is, there was no way that I had the inclination to record that interview because I never knew it was going to go that way, this meeting. I was shocked and stunned. Had I had the foresight and the warning it would, then maybe I would have recorded the meeting and somehow got some sort of covert equipment on my body and got it. But there is only my word and there is only his word. But the thing is, mine will stand up and his won't. He will need to rely on a lie. I won't. I've got the truth. And the corroboration comes in another aspect, in as much as there are other whistleblowing police officers that have come forward.
And these people are coming out independent of each other a lot sometimes.
All of them, every one of them. And do you know the strange thing with this, Addy, is that all of us say the same things. All of us were bullied in the same way. And what I class as the algorithm of bullying. And then it's not just the threats, it's if you continue to expose it and you make allegations then against those that bullied you, they then try and prosecute you, the police, and then they use very, very dark, unhanded techniques to silence you. And on the whole, they probably work. My moral backbone and my integrity refused to allow that to happen, but I was a victim of a horrendous campaign of bullying which spanned quite a few years in order to silence me. And I refused to be silenced.
It's not working.
It's not working. It didn't work because my fear, inconvenience and trauma is nothing compared to that of a young child, you know. It's just wrong, and that's that.
Do you still fear for your life in that sense?
Well, what has happened since all of this is that I've become a campaigner. I've become a campaigner for police whistleblowers because in the United Kingdom the police are not subject to any employment law. We're outside of employment law, so basically they can do what they want to us. It's a discipline service. Even the military have more rights than the police officers have. So they can really unfettered crack on and just destroy us in any way they deem fit. So I campaign for rights for police whistleblowers because when you look at it, like I said about informants, they know what goes on. Police know what goes on. Police know. No one else more than the police knows what's going on. You'll get it within the medical profession. Doctors might know about, and the social services. You call it the CPS in America. We call it the social services over here. CPS is different. CPS is a Crown prosecutor. They're the government prosecuting agency. You know, I forget what the term for it in America is. So the CPS is different to your CPS, but. You know, we have no rights whatsoever, so it's important that police officers are listened to. And also there is a fear that you're going to lose your pension, and your pension really is a massive carrot that
they dangle in front of these people to keep them silent, right?
Yeah, so what they do is they start attacking you for data protection violations, so they go scrutinise all your emails. My emails over a 10-year period were scrutinised. They just went through everything basically I'd ever done, and then they compiled numerous charges to try and silence me. I think in the whole there were 3 major occasions containing 3 offences on each. There was about 9 offences that they placed against me, which they put to the public prosecutor, who dropped every single one.
Really?
Yeah, every single one was dropped. And basically all I said was, do what you want. You do what you want with me, but I will go to court, and this is what I will say. And I named all the officers that were involved and all those that not only attacked me but failed to do something. And it went right the way up to what we call a commissioner, you know, and further down.
Okay. And the commissioner's the head.
The head of that force, yeah. But it does go deeper because...
well, deeper and... Even with what's going on in the States right now with Epstein, like I think it's like a global thing that's happening with kind of discovering this, and I think the internet is playing such a huge role in it because, I mean, if you have an internet connection, like, are you going to silence everyone that has access to the internet? Like,
I mean, what the UK are doing, they're not attacking the information, they're attacking the source of the information. Yeah. Which is a ploy that they've always used. And unfortunately, those that come forward are people of discreditable conduct. A lot of people that have